Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
You really adopted the dark. I was born in it.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Bazinga.
Two in the box. Ready to go. We be fast. They be slow.
Cool.
Hello and welcome to Mt.Geekmore, your weekly podcast where people, your best friends, sit around and talk, debate about top four of a certain subject, a Mount Rushmore, if you will. I am, for today, your host, Daniel DeBoni. You may know me from the show. Neri is busy, so I'm going to be filling in for him today. And we are going to be doing the Mount Rushmore of TV friendships. And so I've pieced together some people to do the episode with us today. Everybody's done it before, but we'll go around the horn here and introduce everybody. We've got Mike Mercadal.
What's up? We should do a top four of made-up reasons why Neri can't be here today.
I like it. I like
do it. Yeah.
Returning for the first time in about a year, we've got Alex Lang.
What's up, y'all?
And we've got Missy.
Hi.
And like I said, we're going to be doing the Mount Rushmore of TV friendships today. If you are new to the show, if you are watching us live on Facebook or YouTube, what we like to do is we go around the horn. We count down from 4 to 1. Everybody gives their picks. If you are listening to the audio version, please don't forget that you can watch us live as we record. We're Mondays, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. And we go out live on Facebook and YouTube at Mt.Geekmore. But as we get to it, we're doing TV friendships. Mike, how did you make your list tonight, man?
Well, we were doing pre-roll and we were showing, talking about our mountains. And one of the things we all kind of realized was that this was an unexpectedly tough mountain for different reasons. Mine was, I went with gut, like my first gut, like two TV friends, right? Like when you think about one, you have to think about the other kind of thing. And then I realized, I like a lot of ensemble shows, but I didn't want to include that because it's more of like a group setting thing. I don't want to give specific examples in case someone has that on their list. But then I realized there's a ton of this. Like this is such a like ubiquitous, like any buddy show, any buddies on TV fit into this. And then it was like, there's too many to choose from. So I just went with my pure gut. And a couple of like last minute, like, shit, I forgot about, like. So I went with pure gut, knee jerk, whatever the hell is the ones that come to my mind as being like the excluding ensemble shows, the friendship, like the pair is the show.
Cool. All right, Alex, what'd you do to make your list, man?
I'm gonna be honest. Like I said before, I had 3 right off the top that I just knew. I mean, and these are some of my favorite shows, so that may be showing more so than others. I may have been, played a little favoritism towards the show more so rather than the duo or that friendships per se. But I'm really solid on this list. It definitely has been something that I've been thinking about all day. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that one of mine is all right. We'll get there when we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
All right, Missy.
So I also went from 0 to 100 with this mountain because I really couldn't get to it until about an hour ago. And I started like Googling and I went from how am I going to do this to oh shit, I have to cut this down from 16 to 4. I tried my best to stick with duos. There is one exception, and I also tried to steer away from obvious shows that you would think I would talk about, and I pushed myself a little bit out of the box a little.
To walk away from the CW for a minute.
I actually did have to walk away from the CW because the friendships I was going to talk about were from the WB area, not the CW. But So I pushed myself a little bit out of my comfort zone. I went with my gut, and these are all friendships that, as I'm looking at them, like there's a version of this in my real life, which I actually feel like very nice about. So this was a therapeutic exercise, actually.
Well, there you go. I was pretty much the same way when Missy and I decided on this topic yesterday. I was like, oh, well, I can think of like one right off the top of my head, and we'll go from there. And then all of a sudden, it was this deluge of them. To kind of narrow it down, I got rid of familial relationships, and I got rid of anything that came across more so as like a mentor protege style relationship. There was one that almost made my list, but that's how I ended up cutting it. Like I did something where it was mutual. Like they both were on kind of even footing with where they stood and how they got along in their friendship. And I went from there. So
interesting point. Shit.
And so, like I said, and I'll get to it in an honorable mention, but there was one that I was really hyped to have on there. And then as I was narrowing it down, that, like I said, that mentor protege thing ended up being why I got rid of that one. So
this is one of those where like how it's like sometimes you think, okay, a vague topic, like, or sometimes we'll have like a super specific topic on the show, like the best, restaurants featured in a TV show that's not like super specific. And it's almost easier when it's too broad like this. You have too many choices and you become like you're constantly second guessing which of your, it's weird the ones that are more difficult to choose from,
well, and one thing that I ran into was like Alex brought up the idea of showing favoritism towards the shows. There are certain ones that I know to be iconic, but they're not shows that are meaningful to me or that I've even watched that much. Like there's a lot that are, the first ones that are going to spring to some people's minds, but those aren't shows that I watch. So they weren't ones that I necessarily talked about. And as I would find these lists, I'd be like, yeah, it's good, but I don't really know that much about them.
It's all about the gut, man. It's all about like the which one of these hurt the most, hit the hardest. Like when you thought of it, that was my goal. When I made the choice, I feel like that's what it's going to come down to for a lot of this is like, it's like you got your mountain, I got my mountain kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll make it work. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be going sans sound effects today as Neri is the keeper of the numbers sound effects. So I'm just going to
Can we on the count of three, Alex, you don't have to, you can join in, do your best impression of what the sound would have been. Where it's like,
oh gosh.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Number 4, whatever.
Número 4.
Yeah.
All right, so Mike, what's your number 4?
I'm gonna go with Leslie Knope and Perkins from Parks and Recreation. I love how positive their friendship is. No one tabled it?
It's also my number 4.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay, great.
That was my sketchy one. I was like, is this too low? But no, I like it right there. Go ahead, Mike.
No, we'll take turns talking about what a lovely friendship, what a lovely dynamic these people have. I love that these, like, the thing about friendships on shows, it's hard. There's sometimes they show, like, more often than not, you'll see these like people on the show that they've been friends since they were children, but seeing adults become friends is also like an interesting thing that I notice about that. Like the more I think about this pairing up, because they meet in the first episode when like when Andy falls in the pit and that's it. The show is off and running. And that is not only the source of the start, the source of the story for the initial story for the show is her, Ann Perkins, and Leslie Knope uniting together to do a thing. And then it also and then as the time goes on, that they show how like unabashedly good Leslie Knope is. Like she's just like a whirlwind of positivity. And then and Ann Perkins is kind of like the average Joe watching the show going, this is fucking weird. But you just, you know what I mean? Like when she all of the fun names that she comes up with, like hyping your friend up when it's like
that's necessary in life.
I will do this right now. It is
go Alex.
Tropical sunfish, opalescent tree shark,
yes,
sunflower, and my personal favorite, rainbow infused space unicorn. There's the perfect nicknames for something. I mean, those are perfect friendship nicknames. The perfect nickname comes from just immediacy. You know it. It just comes out so fluid, and that happens all throughout the series with Leslie and Ann, and that was one of my key points too. Then, like Mike said, it's the first episode where they meet, and their friendship continues throughout the entire series. It's not, eventually Ann and Chris move away. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched Parks and Rec in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
But she moves away. But even in the last episode, when they're all getting back together, everybody's in the one original room in the Parks and Rec department, and Leslie is so happy to see everybody. And then Ann walks out of Ron's room, and she's like, Ann's here, everybody get out the fucking way.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's perfect. I totally agree.
And also one of the things that's interesting about I love the show Parks and Rec. I like everyone talks about how the first season, even the people who make the show, that say the first season was bad, and it was supposed to be like the Mark Brandanowitz show, and then everyone was like, fuck that guy.
I really don't understand why everybody hates him.
He's kind of a tool.
He's kind of a tool. He's kind of a douche.
No?
The thing is that
I'm friends with tons of tools. So what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes.
I mean, maybe we make this show with one.
We have to find the tool within ourselves. No, but I think that it just didn't fit with the show, where everyone was being truly committed to these weird characters, and then he was the guy that's like, oh, what are they, check out these weirdos, at a time when I think that there was like a snarky and ironic collapse in comedy, where it was like people don't want to see people shit on things anymore, especially in that show. Like, one of the reasons The Office was so popular was because even the Jim character was supposed to be that, like, oh, you believe this shit? At a certain point, Jim becomes just as earnestly involved in doing all of the stuff in the show. Like, no, there's none of that tongue in cheek. Like Parks and Rec, like Ron Swanson is Ron Swanson throughout the whole fucking show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Tom is Tom throughout the whole fucking show. They reveal more about themselves, but they don't fundamentally change their characters. Yeah. So after the first season, you see this show become genuinely expressive of these finding stories within the characters that were like, not necessarily jokes or whatever, but each story element was about how unique these characters were within themselves, and like the friendships that come out of there, because you can see that each one had a relationship that was unique with each other person. Of course, the Leslie and Ann Perkins one was like the most obvious, like Galentine's Day. Galentine's Day is a shit that people do now, because Leslie Knope is a good friend.
Yes.
That's literally
that is actually
Alex and I worked the door at a bar and would just see them come in droves on Galentine's Day. Most of them like with penis lollipops and shit like that.
Yeah.
No, haven't been to that Galentine's Day.
Fuck that. This is my number one. Every choice is going to be like me. Like, no, this is number one. I love these people.
All right.
Yeah, that's a good choice, Alex.
Yeah, you too, Mike. I'm off to a great start, guys.
All right, Missy, what do you got for number 4?
So my number 4 is Carol and Daryl from The Walking Dead.
Oh, I didn't even think about that one, and that is a good choice.
So here's why this is an unusual pick for me. I think I'm one of the last people that was watching the show. I did drop it, but I'm picking it up. I'm picking it up because it's finishing the season. I have problems, but I'll say this much about this show, because this is why he's laughing, is because we were talking about this previously, that I told Neri, I made a list. This is Alex, you're here. You have to just dive deep into this. I have a list of all the shows that I've quit for one reason or another. And I made the list with the intention of, like, it's a to-do list. I'm going to go back and finish it. And I'm talking to Neri about it. And he's like, why the fuck would you force yourself to watch a show that you don't want to watch anymore? And that's true for every single show on the list except for The Walking Dead. More on that later.
I've still got a whole last season of Big Bang Theory to watch, and at this point, I'm just in so deep that I'm just still watching.
Yes. So that's why I stuck around for 12 years with the Big Bang Theory, because I was like, I'm that same thing for How I Met Your Mother. But Carol and Daryl, so this is a friendship forged in the most honest of circumstances. And I know that sounds weird, but I really do. I don't know if it's the pandemonium or just my brain has turned a corner, but I just feel like the apocalypse would be the most honest place to forge a friendship because that's it. You burned it all down, so there's nothing but honesty left on the table. And these two characters are such polar opposites, are coming from such different, especially in the first season, they could not be further apart from each other in terms of storyline or friendship or anything. And well, spoiler alert, but Sophia going missing is really what really brings Daryl to like turns the table. It turned the table for me, at least, from going from kind of like I'm on the fence about this guy, like is he an asshole, is he not? And then the whole Sophia story arc really tipped it to the positive side, and that really was the bonding moment for them, which I thought was really great and sweet. And this friendship is proof because the internet wants to ship them as a couple, and they have been for years, but I stand firm on don't do it, because this friendship is proof that platonic love is real, and it's like healing, and it's possible because it is completely possible in my experience. So yeah, I love these guys. I know that, I know the story starts off very Rick centered, but I think really ultimately the show is the heart of this show becomes Daryl and Carol. So that's my number 4.
Well, and the tipping point that you're talking about when you started to care, I mean, that was really what pushed everybody into that moment of realizing that Daryl was what was driving the show. Like that was when the if Daryl dies, we riot like movement started. Like every time like a season would be coming to an end and you're just sitting around like, who are they going to kill this time? And Daryl always seemed like cannon fodder for a death because he's not in the books. So everybody was always just waiting around for him to meet his end. And but that moment is when like everybody just became entranced with Daryl.
And I think that I think it's season 4 when they're in Terminus and Carol saves the day. And that moment where it's all said and done. Well, that's one of my favorite episodes of the whole series. And she comes around the corner, and when Daryl sees her, if you don't have a reaction to that, well, you gotta talk to somebody, because that was like, like the joy, the pure like relief. And when you have a friendship like that in your life, that's just very like healing in that sense. There's nothing like it. And I love these guys. And for somebody that's heavy, like I prefer sitcoms like across the board. For me to want to rank a drama friendship in here is a pretty big deal, because that's not my bread and butter. My bread and butter is sitcoms.
I completely like, I don't know what it says about me that I didn't even think of any dramas. All of my friendships are people who are funny at each other. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's because you see yourself in it. Is kind of how I felt with that. Like I saw a personal relation. Like that was what stuck out to me the most, because that's how me and my friends interact.
Well, but it's true. But you like, if you think about how many hardships I've gotten through because of like my friends. I like my best friends. Like each of them is, all of my friends have had some role at a time when not everything is good. You know what I mean? Like where you weren't expected to joke around. It's just interesting that pick like kind of added a whole new wrinkle of like, oh shit, I didn't even consider like a whole genre of television.
Well, because I think that it's hard in drama shows to find a really because the drama shows are so much about the bigger plot, right? The bigger challenge, the enemy ahead. I think of shows like Grey's and Scandal, and I'm a big Shonda Rhimes fan. All of these shows, they're impeccably written, but it's not about the friendship. Sitcoms are typically centered around our relationship centered, so it's kind of harder.
Right, yeah.
But what builds, I think because The Walking Dead is a show that's, there's a lot more room there for relationships, and that's why so many of the twists and deaths and stuff like that were so gut wrenching for those of the stuck for around for 8 seasons, because you were completely vested. And I'm somebody that ironic, like I get very vested in my fictional characters, so I suffer with them. So to see all that suffering, misery in that show and come back to Carol and Daryl all the time is just delicious. So
I'm gonna drop a bomb real quick. I've never watched The Walking Dead.
Oh,
it's good for a while.
Seen it. I mean, so I grew up in a house where my mom just like didn't approve of that stuff. Like I wasn't no Harry Potter, no Shrek for the longest time. Like,
one of those. Yes.
That. So when I got older, by that point, the zombies weren't really my thing anyway. So I just never watched it. Still haven't.
There's a whole like philosophical concept about like if the world is doing good, you get a lot of vampire shows. If the world is doing bad, you get a lot of zombie shows. So right after, so like when things are not going, like because people identify or the reverse. I can't remember if it might be the reverse. But the point of it is that each genre is inspired by like the hardship of humanity. Where if those type of like fantastical stories of the world is out to get you, there's nothing you can do about it, oh shit, become less palatable at certain times versus let's indulge in like True Blood. When True Blood was like these sexy vampires super speed fucking each other, or like it's because things are going great, man.
That's a fun little escapism, but that's true for a lot of shows. I remember Scandal. Shonda Rhimes has said it that she ended up having to wrap it up because a lot of the storylines in Scandal were just like not impressive anymore, just because of the shit that was going on in real life. So.
All the political shows are like we have to compete with what?
Yeah. All right, so we had Daryl and Carol from The Walking Dead. My number 4, I'm going to call an audible right here. This is a group. This is a pairing that I wasn't going to put on here because they're not good people, but they are good to each other.
Interesting.
My number 4 is Jack and Karen from Will and Grace. Okay. All right.
You knew before you.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. She knew where I was going. All right. So for our number 4,
because he goes, they're not good people, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly where he's going.
So we had 2 for Leslie and Ann from Parks and Rec, Daryl and Carol from The Walking Dead, and Jack and Karen from Will and Grace. On to our number 3s.
Number 3.
3 is a magic number.
Doesn't it go? Don't we get the 1, 2, 3 also?
Yes.
There you go.
2, 3. Ding, ding, ding. All right, here we go. What's your number 3, guys. Mike?
I'm going to go with Sean and Gus from Psych.
Whoa, fuck.
Nope.
You didn't even finish.
Light speed tabling.
Good for you, Alex.
These guys making their mountains together.
It's not competitive, brother. We are friends now.
Oh no, this isn't a competition about winning. At least with this panel, this is super elegant. No. This is fine.
All right, so Sean and Gus from Psych.
I'm Sean Spencer, and you're Guy Buttersnaps.
Alex. All right, Alex, what's your number 3?
All right, real quick, Mike. My peacock logo is Gus's face, and my name is Guy Buttersnaps.
Guy Buttersnaps.
Guy Buttersnaps.
I don't know anything that's happening right now.
No.
My number 3 is Norm and Cliff from Cheers.
Nice, good.
That's honorable mention. Okay. I just don't watch Cheers a lot, so that's why honorable mention.
As you can see, I mean, I had to rep it tonight.
Nice.
I am fairly young. But this was one of the shows that I just gravitated towards. Like my mom would always have it on when it came on Netflix. My mom was like, "You have to watch it," and I was like, "All right, fine, I'll give it a shot." Like old '70s show, whatever. No, it's phenomenal, and Norm and Cliff are 2 of the staples to me. Yeah. The show was on for 11 years itself. So you have to at least assume that they've known each other for 11 years. But to go to a bar every single day, the same bar every single day, and first off, Norm walks in. Norm, everybody.
Who doesn't want that reception when you walk into a room instead of you again?
Exactly. So that's the first thing. And then Normie and Cliffy, and they're always together, whether they're playing pool, ragging on each other, making Frasier do some stupid stuff. It's always a good time with Norm and Cliff. And so that's my number 3.
Really
All
good.
right. Yeah, like I said, honorable mention. They were one of the first ones I thought of, but I was like, I've probably seen 7 episodes of Cheers, like, cumulatively ever. So it just wasn't one I could talk about.
I have rewatched it at least 5 times through.
The whole series?
The whole series. I've watched
Mike,
it.
you're super low all of a sudden.
Like, it's up there with The Office for me.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I love Cheers. I love Coach is also, if we were just doing TV show characters, Coach might be my number 1.
So
because of how funny Ernie Pantuso is.
So do you think that you have this much affection because it was like a bonding thing with you and your mom, or was it just like you like independently? I'm always
Pump the brakes here, Miss Freud.
Missy's pulling on my heartstrings now. Okay,
I'm interested.
No, it may have
And
started
stalling.
out that way. It may have started out that way, but I genuinely grew to love the show itself. You know, like I said, I've watched it so many times through now, and I'll still put it on, you know, every now and then. But it's such like an iconic show. You know, it wasn't obviously in my era, but it's such an iconic show to me just because it's always a good time. You know, it's just perfect to me. It's one of those ones that I'll never let go of.
I was definitely too young to be watching a show about bars. I think I was like 7 or 8, and I was like live watch, and I was very unsupervised as a child, so I was just like, oh, this is a great show, and like very vested in it. So yeah, Cheers is a classic. I've actually gone through a lot more, like in terms of sequential order. I've gone through Frasier a lot more than I have Cheers, but it is one of those on my list that I want to finish.
So Frasier, I actually have never gone like fully like through Frasier. Like that's the one where I've kind of like done the bits and pieces of.
Yeah.
But so that's on my list to watch when I eventually get through it all. But,
cool.
This is definitely one of the ones that I thought of that because I love the show. This is also one of the things that happens when you have access to literally every TV show in the history of TV.
Overwhelming.
It's interesting which shows get latched onto by generations or demographics that the show wasn't really intended for, you know. So like Cheers, like when it got on Netflix, people were watching Cheers like crazy, and then there was people. I remember seeing posts about how they were making connections between Ted Danson in The Good Place and Ted Danson in Cheers. And they were like, "Oh, it's the same guy," and it was like people were genuinely like, when you have access to everything, you don't miss out on some of these things, you know. Like, so some of the more obscure choices, like you could make from some, you know, if you wanted to do a show, you know, pick a friendship based on the show Taxi, right? Like, you know, there would. You could say something like it's harder to feel like you're the only person that knows about something these days because of that. So you saying, "Oh, it's not of my time." It's like we live in an era where that doesn't apply anymore. It's of now because it's available to everybody now.
Because it's trending.
Yeah,
and
true.
obviously,
And it's a good pick.
And then, it's
yeah,
a great
my
pick.
mom lives in Boston now, so I've actually gotten to visit the actual bar where there's 2 actually. There's one in Faneuil Hall, which is set up like the actual bar setup.
Oh, cool.
And then there is the video where they always get the passing by before they go into the bar, which is the actual location. It had a different name, and that's the one I've been to. I've sat at the bar. I got served there underage. Shout out you, Cheers. Fantastic.
That's great.
Fantastic.
An ID. It was. I was like, this is my place.
Well, Boston does it.
Everybody knows your name there. All right, Missy, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 is David and Stevie from Schitt's Creek.
Cable.
Ooh.
I have an outline.
Interesting.
All right, so David and Stevie. All right, so my number 3 is one thing I did say when I was whenever I tried to kind of pick different types of friendships, you know, because it's easy to just be like all like, you know, buddy guy ones. So I tried to push myself, like Missy was saying, into thinking of other things. And one that I finally thought of that was a girl-girl relationship that is fantastic is Jess and Cece from New Girl.
Nice.
Good.
Jess and Cece from New Girl is a lot of fun to watch because so often, especially through the 90s and the early 2000s, when girls were friends on shows, it was always that frenemy dynamic. There was always that push and pull of some weird power dynamic. Even when you look at Friends, where it wasn't supposed to be there, it was always kind of because of the differences in the money they made and stuff like that. It was things that would come up. Jess and Cece, there wasn't necessarily that power dynamic, even though they were from very different walks of life and they were extremely different people. When they were together and it was the two of them, those Neary, when they were together and there were two of them, and it was just the two of them. There wasn't a lot of push and pull. They were both there for each other all the time, and for everything that they both went through over the course of the show, that was the one person they knew they could always go to. Like, that's another show where it is. I mean, the show solely exists to tell the stories of the relationships between these people, and there's an argument to be made for a couple of different relationships in that show. But I think that Jess and Cece really exaggerated this kind of girl boss mentality, right? Where like you don't have to put down the people that are your friends to make yourself feel better. Like, you can celebrate your friends' victories. Your friend's victory isn't necessarily your loss. And that was something that Jess and Cece demonstrated and illustrated just perfectly. They were really, really great at that.
Man,
and this is a show I just watched it recently. I had COVID back in January and I was running out of things to watch. And I was like, well, I still got 6 days left in this bedroom and New Girl's here.
Also, the great thing about this friendship is, to your point, Debona, that a lot of the friendship archetypes have always been structured about, like, are you the sporty girl, or are you the brain, or are you whatever? And Cece and Jess could not be more different. And I think that's really an honest way to reflect any friendship, because that works, I think, in real life. So it's easier for people to relate to, where you're not typically the personalities aren't very similar. I'm friends with a lot of people that used to be cheerleaders, and I'm not that. So that is very relatable to me, that you can see a friendship like that reflected on TV.
Me too.
What? Yeah. So yes, great pick.
Yeah. So it was, like I said, it was the one, like I said, just two girls getting along without any backbiting or undercutting or anything like that stuck out to me.
Yeah. No cattiness.
There's a good word.
I will say, for everybody watching, if you're watching and you want to throw comments, we're gonna have an honorable mention section before our final pick. So get your honorable mentions into your mountain in the comments, and then we'll read them all off at the honorable mentions section.
All right. So the number threes were Sean and Gus from Psych, Norman Cliff from Cheers, David and Stevie from Schitt's Creek, and Jess and Cece from New Girl. Next up, we've got the number twos, Dose, the sequel to Uno.
Oh, the two legit.
And then, the too legit to quit. Right.
Yeah. This is like a spoken word version of it.
Yeah.
This is the slam poetry edition. All right.
What is a mountain but not a Mt.Geekmore? No.
All right. So, Mike, in the words of Neary, hit me with your deuce, bro.
I'm going to drop a deuce on you right now. Troy and Abed on Mt.Geekmore. Troy and Abed from Community.
Spectacular.
I couldn't
shut up. I'm going to talk for 20 minutes.
I couldn't put it on my mountain because I'm not done binging it, but I love them so much.
Honorable mention, just because I just couldn't make them fit, because I've got another one that's a similar dynamic.
It was one of those shows where I liked it, but it didn't quite squeeze it out.
You and way to go tie a through line through the deuce theme. Squeezing out number two is Troy and Abed. Well, here's the thing. That show is exactly what you just said. People didn't get it, and then when they did, like, Community, since its airing, had so much turmoil in its backstory that it was also like the demise of broadcast sitcom comedy, like broadcast TV, like the last show that really of the era of right before streaming, where people would have to like where viewership numbers counted and shit like that, because ultimately they were canceled and brought back like a bunch of times,
2 or 3 times. Yeah.
Dan Harmon was fired, a different voice was running the show in the
6
fourth
seasons
season,
in a movie.
and they got their 6 seasons. And if you watch the whole through line of the show, it's like a love story to entertainment. It's like a love story to struggling through this art to create, like, because the show itself is bonkers in its structure and in its like what it's trying to accomplish, but then in it you get a lot of like a heartfelt, I guess the same thing with like the Parks and Rec, where there were like all of the jokes felt, it wasn't like, oh, somebody sat in a cake, you know, it was like
Yeah, it was more cerebral.
That's your go-to gag.
Yeah. Well, every sitcom has a thing where like, I'm at a fancy restaurant, I hope I don't spill spaghetti sauce on my pants. Guess what I did? I did the thing that I didn't, you know, like they all and this was kind of like really subversive. It was really smart. It was like
smart.
making fun of a lot of different genres. And then in the middle of it, you have this friendship of Troy and Abed, which there's everything involved is the relationships between the other characters. I guess it's like a through line of all of my picks is like that kind of thing. But like unabashedly willing to express their emotional connection to each other is like a big deal. Like, I love my friend. That is, you know, like I'm the kind of guy, I always suffered from being thought of differently because I was a soft boy. I was like, I love everybody. Why do I have to be a hard ass? You know, like when you're young and you're taught like manly things. And I was like, I hugged my dad and kissed my dad on the cheek. I don't understand why men can't hug each other. You know, like I never understood that. And when you see it reflected in my picks, I guess all of them in some way, there's people unabashedly being friends with each other and not like making fun of each other or not like where like entire friendships are based about like shitting on each other. Here are Troy and Abed, who are, for the lack of a better term, equally weird. They're not not in quality, but in like they are both very weird in different ways, and they mesh each other well, and they're always on board with each other's dumb idea.
I love it.
They like unabashedly joke around, like, you know, when they're dressing Troy up as a Christmas tree, when they're doing all of their escapade, when Abed becomes Jesus at one point.
Oh my god!
And then when Troy leaves the show because Donald Glover gets super fucking Childish Gambino famous, and he got his boat. He got his boat. He sailed around the world with LeVar Burton. These are all real things that I've said that happened in the show.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely like a hard thing. Like once Troy and Abed like are no longer a part of the show, a little piece of the show died. Just as a testament to how good the show is, they kept going, and it's still funny. It's still great, and there's still incredible relationships. But that was such a like important thing in the show. And
to counter, I know, are we all fans of Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes. Honorable mention.
This is a great. Okay. This is a great example of the thing what you were talking about, Mike, where it's like two friendships that like a friendship that is solid and real and genuine and earnest and everything, but the punchline is that one of them is always busting balls. Right. Jake Peralta and Charles are a great example of that, and they're both equally, I think, weird, and they're like same theme, but the kicker is always to bust balls, and yeah, I love Abed, and they're such a great cast.
I hate the people who are like, I love genuine emotional, like there's no such thing as there's no such thing as like getting shit on for loving your friends, you know, like like be a good friend, you know, like enjoy your friends, enjoy, like trust them,
tell them you love them,
tell your friends you love them. That's if anything, we'll see the through line to all of me is like, if you're my friend, I love you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the point. But that's my rant. I'm gonna go with Troy and Abed.
Great, excellent. The only reason
friendship.
The only reason why they didn't make my mountain is because I'm not done with the show. Which I saw enough. I've seen enough of The Walking Dead that I know that Carol and Daryl are like not going anywhere. So I don't know where Ovid and Trey are going. But I love this show so much. It's so perfect.
All right, so we got Troy and Abed. Alex, number 2.
All right. I have a feeling that this might be tabled, but JD and Turk.
Oh, table.
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 What the fuck are you talking about?
JD and Turk from Scrubs. Table it all day.
Right.
I figured that was gonna happen, but
Okay,
all right,
so those are your number ones. Got it.
All right. So, Missy, what do you got for number 2?
So my number 2 are an iconic duo. Not great people, as Devona so eloquently established earlier. It's Jack and Karen from Will and Grace, the better duo of Will and Grace.
Yes, absolutely.
I think I don't remember who said this, but there was a quote once. I think it's one of the creators of the show that was like, Jack and Karen were supposed to be like Will and Grace, but on Quaaludes. And honestly, like, is there a better way to describe those two than that?
Like it.
So from what I know about in Wolf of Wall Street, Quaaludes are bad.
Well, yes,
especially the one kind.
The one that leaves the guy like trying to climb out to his car.
So yes, a common theme in Karen's life is substance abuse. Again, not role models, if you will, for children, but I think for adults, you get it. You get why. Jack and Karen are just every scene that they're in together where it's just them two. Like, honestly, like if we were to make not with this panel, but we were going to make a mountain of Will and Grace like moments, it would just be them too. Like the show was just so fucking like if those characters hadn't existed, that show would have been able to make the original run and then come back, because the only reason that I watched when it came back was for Jack and Karen. And so they are the better duo. They're way more honest about their flaws, where Will and which I think is really important in a friendship, where if you're like, obviously for these two, it is a phase and it isn't, but I think it's important for every friendship that you're in, that it starts like in point A, and you can look back and be like, man, back like 10 years ago, we used to do the dumbest shit. And like now you kind of evolved from that, but you can do it together. Right. And this is another great example of, I guess, Mike, my theme is platonic love.
Yeah.
Because it's another great example of loyal, kind of committed to this friendship. And it's fully platonic. It's so fucking great. And they just both are just like the best hype people you could ever ask for in a situation. And so again, I love these guys, and I love them so much. That's all I'm going to say.
Whose other pick was
I had him at number 4. There, Jack and Karen are the only reason I've ever been able to get through an episode of Will and Grace. I'm not trying to shit on the show. I'm not trying to make a big deal about whether or not the show is good. It's just
I'm trying to drop a deuce on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm not Will and Grace's target audience for I'm not who they made that show for, and I can accept that. I can move on. I don't crap on it because I just don't watch it. But when I do, it's because of Jack and Karen. And then when they're together, I mean, they're like the Wonder Twins, right? Like individually, sure, they're fine, they're whatever.
Twins.
But when they get together, right? When they're at their best is when they can feed off of each other, and they're shooting comments at each other, and like you were talking about friends that don't shit on each other, like they do, but there's so much love in it always. It's always a joke, and then she calls him poodle, and it's just it's so great to see the two of them interact when they lift up their shirts and
that first scene where they first meet each other is just like, I know I keep saying I'm going to say the word iconic a lot when I talk about these two, because in terms of TV history, like even if you've never seen the show, that scene because it's just like impeccable. And the great thing about these two is that while the writing was fantastic in the original run, because they had the legendary writers on staff, But Jack and Karen are who they are because of the actors.
Right.
And they're only elevated to that 10 because of their talent and just so great.
Well,
10
and
out
I
of
mean,
10.
and in my experience, Megan Mullally can do no wrong.
She cannot.
I've yet to see her do something that didn't just get me. Like, I mean, she used to have a part on Children's Hospital. If you guys ever watched that,
Oh
like,
my God, yeah.
really,
her talk show was awesome.
this really bizarre. I mean, she's just always so funny. And then the way that I can't even think of the actor's name who plays Jack off the top of my head. But
Sean
Hayes.
There we go.
But
Yeah,
that's the thing
way
about-
the two of them play off each other is just spectacular.
I do feel like Sean Hayes kind of got shafted in that transaction because I think people only think of him as Jack, and that Megan Mullally's done a million. Like when she was on Parks and Rec, she's been on a million different shows, and she's great in a lot of stuff. I feel like Sean Hayes kind of got shafted a little because he got pigeonholed into that kind of character, because it's almost like if you're too good at a thing. This is true, and everybody in your life.
That's true.
If you
James Gandolfini was never able to not be Tony Soprano after that.
If you are irreplaceable at your job, if you are irreplaceable at your job, you are also unpromotable. So if you are so unique in your presence in something, it's hard for people to think of you in any other way. And I think Jack, just Jack and all that shit falls into it.
Yeah, but I do agree to that, and that's true. But I also think that, like, if you're going to be remembered for one thing your whole life, like, this is definitely because there are people that go viral and they will be remembered for the rest of their life for the dumbest shit. You know what I mean? And like,
my dream acting gig is? My dream acting gig is to get on one of those sci-fi shows that has like a really passionate fan base,
like a Firefly,
like a Firefly, like a Farscape,
and then just get to do cons for being one character for the rest of
my life.
That's a good career plan.
People who are super into the thing I did. And I'm just going to be like, yo, what's up? Remember me from Farscape? That is such a weird dream gig that I have in my life. I absolutely want that. So I get it. If someone's like, hey, you want to hit sitcom for a few years, but then you can't really do anything else, I'd be like, yes.
It pays the bills.
Absolutely.
It's the one-hit wonder phenomenon, right? Tony Basil never has to do anything else.
Yeah.
You know,
Mickey, you're so fine.
That's right.
Everybody knows it.
So
Vanilla
Jack
Ice.
and Karen.
Yes, Jack and Karen forever.
My number 2, we could talk about it now, Missy, is Stevie and David. I will admit I was very late to Schitt's Creek. A long time ago, I tried to start it, and season 1, I just couldn't make. I don't know. It wasn't clicking for me. And people were just always telling me, and I'd get on this podcast, right? And I'd hear about Schitt's Creek, and like Dave loves it, and Steph loves it, and I'm just always hearing about all these people who love it. And then I finally got to the moment where everything started clicking towards the end of season 1, and it's been phenomenal ever since. And at the base of that, as much as it is just David, it is David and Stevie's relationship, in the fact that they're two sides of the same coin. Which is why they didn't work as a couple when they tried that out with the friends with benefits thing or whatever. It didn't play out because
and the throuple.
Then the throuple. they're the same person. Like, they both hate everyone, but she's like the tomboy, hands-on, just kind of schlubby. Here's what I found when I woke up this morning, and it was laying on the chair beside my bed. And, and he's, very manicured and put together, and everything he does is so perfect. So that dichotomy of their relationship is why they fit together so well. So often when you look at Jack and Karen, they're so much alike in just like always that's why they go together so well. But Stevie and David are so different in so many ways. It's almost like how if you walk in opposite directions, you can eventually go all the way around the world and meet again. And that's where Stevie and David are. They have gone all the way around the world in opposite directions until they met on the other side and realized how close they were. And so they were one of the first ones that popped in my mind when we came up with this topic.
So Schitt's Creek was a pandemic panic comfort watch for me last year. I had heard about the show for a couple of years. It was on my radar, but I hadn't really gone for it. So everything that Debona just said was really my literal bullet points. What I'll say about David and Stevie is that they have this unspoken connection. It's not something that they really had to cultivate to kind of start the momentum of their friendship. They just kind of clicked, and it went from there. It doesn't matter that they're complete opposites. It doesn't matter that they could not be. Stevie's my hero for being in a plaid shirt in every fucking scene of that show. And David is not a very likable character, especially in the first season. He's not a very likable character, and Stevie does that kind of Ann Perkins job for him. Like, she plays that Ann Perkins to that character that first season, where you as the audience, you're watching him through her eyes, because she busts balls and like a zinger after zinger every time.
And they will put each other through the ringer, like just watching the other one suffer in misery and just enjoy it.
When David was
through the show, I couldn't get through it because of my secondhand embarrassment of like
because
that vibe, and I was like, oh man, I know this is good, but also like, oh, I don't want to watch these.
Yeah,
people.
Mike, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I tried to get through the first season, like everybody said, like Debona said. I tried to get through the first season, but I got enough of it to realize that David and whatever her face
Stevie.
is.
David and Stevie.
They had a good relationship. I could tell that much, but that first, I couldn't get over
the first couple episodes were just like.
So I mean, that's the hook, right? But they all go on a journey. They all get fleshed out really well. At a certain point, there is a character added to the cast that really just I could go on and on about, but I'm going to stop myself.
Well, and a big thing with the show is too, when it started, Eugene Levy didn't know how much of the show Daniel Levy could carry, and by the end of the first season, so he's a much bigger part of the show.
Yeah,
once he realized once everybody realized that Daniel Levy could carry the show, and that the actress who plays Alexis, like they had chops and they could do this. Eugene Levy starts pulling back, and the story becomes more about David and Alexis, and it becomes something that you can get involved with.
That's an interesting sales pitch. I think I'll try it. I'll give it another shot.
And the internet is just, there's nothing really. I love this show for this one of those comfort watches. The list is long, I will say, for comfort watches and Missy, but again, a relatable aspect of something that I see on screen that I also see in my life is it's a common theme that, like, the combination of friends that I end up around, none of us have a lot in, like, on the surface. Like, if we were gonna stick to like the high school archetype trope where, like, oh, the jocks are with the jocks, like, that wouldn't work. That doesn't check any boxes here, because we're all so different, but the vibe is just there from the jump. And one of my favorite, I mean, they had countless moments, but one of my favorite moments at the end of season 1, Debona, is when David's like packing up and he's gearing up thinking he's going back to New York, and he tells Stevie to come with him, and she's like, I wouldn't even know what to do in New York, and he goes, oh, just watch the show Girls and do the exact opposite. I think like the whole, like, that's just
all right. You sold me
on a mountain of Schitt's Creek moments that would probably be one or two, because it's just so
and like
great.
Like I said, as it does move on, Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy kind of they don't fade into the background, but they become supporting cast to these other people that are allowed to carry the show and tell their stories, and that's really when it does take off.
Yeah.
All right, get into honorable mentions.
Yeah. So our number 2s were Troy and Abed, JD and Turk, Jack and Karen, Stevie and David. We'll start. You want to start off? We'll start off with the ones that we've got over here from guests. Mike, you want to start slinging some of those up?
Of us or from the comments?
Let's go with comments. Let's go with some comment ones first.
Nary's in the comments. He likes your girl reference. Jason Williams, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Jason, what it is?
And he said Xena and Gabrielle from Xena.
Yes.
Warrior Princess. That is
eliminated couples. So.
Yes. Yolanda, welcome to the Yolanda. Grace and Frankie, which I've not watched, but I hear great things.
I've not watched, but everybody I've heard says it's good.
So good.
Yeah. David Yoa, Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock. He put a bunch. Scully and Mulder. Agent Dale Cooper.
Dale Cooper and Harry S. Truman from Twin Peaks.
And Detectives Peralta and Boyle, they are one of my honorable mentions as well. Neri with Troy and Abed, they are friends goals. And yes, it's true. And he also agrees, tell your friends you love them. Everyone should tell your friends you love them. Yolanda also with SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yes.
Honorable mention.
That's a great, Neri says, love your friends and not punch them in the arm while driving. I'm assuming.
Are you in on that, Missy?
Yeah, because he was being annoying and he was also driving. And I gave him like 6 or 7 opportunities to stop and he kept going. And I honestly didn't even make a conscious choice. I just turned on.
If you say some shit 13 more times, I swear to God.
And not even like I can honestly hand to God that not was like, now I'm gonna hit him. It was just kind of like my instincts were like, fuck you. And then he's like, don't punch me when I'm driving. I'm like, it would be worth it. It would be fucking worth it.
David, you are my friends and I unabashedly love you. I love you, Missy, Daniel, and what about Alex?
He just met him.
Yes.
Love you too, David. Okay.
Love you, David.
My God. And Mary, you could say that Sean Hayes is only seen as just Jack.
The professional comedian. Do better.
I mean, in all fairness, I think it came up just as I was.
Yeah, it did.
All
right. So what do you have for honorable mentions, Mike? You got anything left?
I do have, I don't know if it's going to be on somebody's mountain, but Lucy and Ethel from I Love Lucy.
Yes.
Honorable mention.
Yeah, definitely honorable mention. George and Jerry Seinfeld and George Costanza also. Yeah. I liked it, but they're part of the ensemble, but they are genuinely the core of that show, if you think about it, because of Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David. And if you watch the show through that filter, you kind of understand that's the core friendship. Elaine and Kramer are like, one of them was a love interest and the other one is the wacky neighbor. So like the true friend group, the core of that friend group is George. And you see it when there's the summer camp friend that comes to visit and he's like, oh, you're Summer George. Summer George. And then it's like, you're Winter me. But those are, and then there was another one that I didn't write down that as we were talking it came up and I forgot it.
All right, Alex, honorable mentions.
Already mentioned Peralta and Boyle. Had that one. Had Troy and Abed down. Chandler and Joey from Friends.
Yes.
Kind of a classic one. It just felt too lobbed up for me to pick it. I mean, it was too obvious. Ted and Marshall, and then I put in parentheses Barney because Barney always likes to say, I'm your best friend. So that's up there. Lorelai and Suki from Gilmore Girls.
Yes.
Did we just become best friends?
That was also one of my mom's like picks. My mom was like,
your mom is cool.
My mom's the shit.
She really is cool.
Yo,
but she got me
ain't
on
bad
Gilmore
looking
Girls,
either.
and even when they did the reboot, stop it. Get out of here. Get out of here. Gotta stop introducing you to my family members.
Neri, give DeBona back the microphone.
There's a button here that says I can remove you from the stream, DeBona. No,
and then I had Michael and Dwight, and then Jim and Dwight.
I had Jim and Dwight.
That's too much of that was one of those that was ensemble for me. It was hard. Like, because I would have put Jim and Dwight because secretly they are great friends.
Yes, Jim and Dwight is
Dwight and Pam.
Jim and Dwight is what I audibled off of at the last second.
From the one episode, okay.
Dwight and Pam. He calls Dwight calls Pam his best friend.
Yeah, and there's more than one instances. Remember when she's crying because she's upset about Jim and Karen, and he's like, "So periods got you down," and he's like patting her, like that's sweet.
You must be having your period pretty bad.
That's great.
Do you remember when I had the concussion?
Yeah.
And then Sheldon and Leonard from Big Bang. DeBona threw that one out there, threw the show out there, and I was like, oh shit, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Missy, honorable mentions.
Poussey and Tasty from Orange is the New Black. Grace and Frankie. Shout out to Yolanda. Yeah. Frankie is old lady goals right here. Penelope and Schneider from One Day at a Time. Nobody watches that show but me.
Wow.
Yeah. You never watched it? You never got into it?
Is that the is it the is okay? Is that
It's
the
a
new one?
reboot.
The
Yeah.
reboot.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I remember Schneider from like the old One Day at a Time from like the 80s. I think it
Yeah,
was
no,
70s,
this
80s.
is from the reboot that Netflix picked up and then dropped a couple of times. Pop TV picked it up last year, but because of
Right,
the
right.
pandemonium, it died. But great watch. I love it. Rita Moreno is in it. Just great cast. But Penelope and Schneider have a great relationship. It's centered around a lot of mental health a Venn diagram, which always strikes a chord. And then I have Nick and Schmitty from New Girl in my honorable mentions because they are goals.
Most of mine have been mentioned. A couple that I eliminated just because I kind of saw them more as mentor-protege style relationships are Leslie Knope and Ron Swanson are one that I went with, but that was how I justified kind of taking them off my 4. Arya and the Hound, which was kind of it was one I struggled with. That's the one that I'm saying like that was going to be my drama pick, but it was kind of like an adoptive father type thing. It was kind of like a mentor protege type thing. But like I said, a lot of mine ended on 2 peers that had like equal footing and everything. And so that is how I kind of took Arya and the Hound out of that. And then I know it's been mentioned by Yolanda, but Patrick and SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I didn't
just,
think about that.
It's just, it really is an untouchable duo, except for that one time when they were forced into gender roles and they didn't get along. So then when they bucked the system and they went back to just being friends, when they weren't raising a baby clam together anymore.
Wow.
Oh my
Go
god!
figure.
Have you seen that one?
No.
And like, oh my god,
I was just the wrong age for.
They're raising a baby
what you mean,
clam, and Patrick like leaves for work every day with a briefcase, and SpongeBob's doing all the housework, and then Patrick comes home and sits in front of the TV while SpongeBob still does everything.
Wow,
it's a hilarious. They're spectacular. And so anyway, that was my.
If we're throwing Nickelodeon out there, Drake and Josh deserve to be on there too.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just saying, they're brothers, but Drake and Josh are best friends at heart. I know
That's
it.
There
true.
we go.
I remembered Zoe and Wash from Firefly.
Oh yes,
because they are a married couple, and they love each other to death, like romantically. But you could clearly see that they are fucking good friends.
Yes,
Zoe and Wash from Firefly was
Wash deserved better.
Yeah.
Not than Zoe, better than his fate. He didn't deserve better than Zoe. He deserved
Gina Torres?
Fate.
No one deserves Gina Torres. She is an angel of light. She's beautiful and
exactly,
Latina,
Afro Latina. Did not deserve better than his wife.
Torres
deserved better than his fate. All right, so that's going to take us into our round 1. There's no turning back. This is your last chance.
That's right.
And then I think there's Nelly in there, right?
And number one.
Yeah. All right. So what's your number 1, Mike?
Turk and JD,
untouchable.
Scrubs. I mean,
absolutely untouchable.
I couldn't. So, Missy, you've never seen Scrubs?
No.
Okay.
But go on. Don't worry about spoilers.
You can't really spoil the show because it went so long. It is one of those shows that I started working in healthcare after the show was already on the air, and then I was like, oh, this isn't all those other medical shows got it wrong. We work in Scrubs. Like, this is the show Scrubs, because there was genuinely, I was working in the emergency room, and it was not 1-for-1 exactly the show, but the vibe of swinging from comedy to drama with like at the drop of a hat was very real, very, very, very real. And the desire, the like bonding of friendship, like just now through the whole pandemic and all of the COVID shit, I've kind of reunited with people online just because I'd gone through similar experiences, like bonded with my friends at these jobs through political strife. Like, some of them are Republican and I'm definitely not, but the idea of we went through such a galvanizing kind of experience. You build these solid friendships, and we've been messaging and we talk and we joke around. And I remember how much I joked around as like a way to keep things light. And then you see this show, and it so accurately represents that kind of vibe. And in the center of it is JD is the star of the show, but it becomes this kind of ensemble cast. But like the JD and Turk relationship is from the get unabashedly like overt, real
Yes.
love.
Mhm.
They love each other. There's no, even when they joke around about how they how about not gay it is, like how it's like gay but not
Dude,
gay.
we're kind of married.
Yeah. The whole thing with Carla's marrying him, and like the idea that the friendship is so tight, and they come from completely different backgrounds. One's black, one's one's black, one's white, one's and then to see all of the fact that none of that matters, and they're all just it's all love, and they're all friends, and when they argue they will end up communicating, and they work through trouble. They have these intense dramatic moments that they have to get through together. Like, it's the whole friendship package tied up in this kind of, I love the show. And then to learn that they are real friends in real life.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
What
they
a
have a
joy.
podcast. They have a podcast called Fake Doctors, Real Friends.
Yes.
That's
And
great.
it started during, they came up with the idea before the pandemic started, but then the pandemic hit and they had to do the show remotely, and it became like this kind of I've since stopped listening, but I was hooked on it because of the positive vibes that it gave off. And they lost friends to COVID, and they grieved on their podcast. They were scrubsing on their podcast in real life. That's how good friends are. They that vibe. Turk and JD is friendship goals, and then also Zach Braff and Donald Faison is goals. You know what I mean? They are genuinely friends, and the show itself kind of they have a whole musical episode where at the beginning there's this woman that has a tumor that only hears everything in song. So it turns boom from her perspective into a musical episode, and then one of the songs is Guy Love. It's it's just about their unabashed loving friendship, and it's not gay. We
talked about the fact that life has got to be about acknowledging that you love your friends, and Scrubs is actually something that kind of made me come to terms with that. Like, Mike, you say that you were always kind of a soft guy. I'm the first male in my family to not go into the military, right? So I was raised in this guys didn't show emotion type
tough
thing.
guy shit.
Yeah, and I mean,
toxic masculinity,
right?
We are victims. Soft men are victims of the patriarchy too.
And so
sidekicks did it.
And so Scrubs is something that made me realize that it's okay to not just love your friends, but to look your friends in the face and say to them that you love them. JD and Turk are brought together by fate, quite literally. They met when they were strangers who were paired together in college. So they're two guys who are brought together by fate. Like you said, one white, one black, one super athletic, one the absolute antithesis of anything athletic. And it's always promoted as Turk is really good with the ladies and JD's not, but JD got plenty of really good looking ladies throughout the course of that show.
On the podcast, Donald Faison is always they paired me off with Carla at the beginning, who I was in love with Carla. Oh my God, I had such a crush on Judy Reyes. She's so hot. But they paired Donald Faison and her off at the beginning of the show, and then so he was like, "How come I didn't get to make out with no hot women coming to the show?"
Yeah, exactly. Amy Smart, Mandy Moore, anyway, whatever. So, but they're two guys who absolutely acknowledge every minute of every day how important the other one is to them. Yeah. Even when they fight and things like that, even when JD, finds out that, Turk finally admits sleeping with one of his college girlfriends and stuff like this. It's not anything that ever lasts that long, because they're fully aware of how vital the other one is. Throughout the show, over the course of the show, they always talk about how they have these plans for the future. How no matter what they ever did, they were always going to be part of each other's lives. When Turk finally has, when they both finally have kids, Turk is remember, I'm supposed to teach your son how to play sports, and you're supposed to handle Izzy's emotional stuff. And that's how we're going to do this. And they both acknowledge each other's strengths and weaknesses, and then they actively work within each other's lives to make the other one better. at what they're not so good at. One of my favorite moments ever, and like just this is a ridiculous one, but one of the heights of their friendship for me is JD is laying on the pavement out in front of the hospital, wearing like a tank top. And Turk is laying there next to him, and JD just kind of shakes his head. He's like, "What happened?" And he goes, you went up for a layup and knocked yourself out. So I laid down next to you and just told people we were taking a nap." Like that's looking out for your boy. Like, I know you suck at basketball, and I appreciate that you came and played with me. So now that you've made an ass of yourself, like, I'm gonna make it not so big a deal. JD, when I posted on Facebook that I was going to do this episode, my friend Hunger immediately like, I know what your number one's going to be. My best friend in the world, Lewis Essman's been on this podcast before, done podcasts with me. He is in my phone as Mocha Bear. I have one of his business cards in my car above my visor that says, "I love you, Vanilla Bear." And it is stuck right up in the visor of my car because we are JD and Turk.
That's one of those things that people
I couldn't walk away from this one.
In the show, JD has a brother. Turk has brothers.
It's Egg, the bowling alley lawyer.
Mm-hmm. And it is absolutely, but the relationship that he has with his brother is not good. It's not as it also goes like all these shows that talk about found family and like choosing who you have in your life around you. This is a perfect example of that. You can have an incredible amount of love for your friends, which I keep coming back to it, where people need to like. I also say this in relationships too. Like you have to like the people you're with. The like between them is almost as strong as the love. Which does that make sense?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Because I'm sure he loves his brother, but they don't like each other. I'm sure Turk gets into a big thing where like with D.L. Hughley
is his
yeah. And then it's like a thing where he loses love. He likes his brother, but he loses love for him. And then Turk and JD are the like perfect match of liking someone and like having all of those goofy fun games on stuff while also loving them by showing them support and having their back and on stuff. I think it's a perfect model for like male friendships, even because one of them's tough and one of them's soft.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, as a soft boy in the 90s, it was a tough waters to navigate.
No, 100%. I totally agree with this. This was my number 2, and I'm wholeheartedly on board with y'all picking number 1. That's why I went in. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is going to get tabled. I told my girlfriend I was doing this before, and I was like, I'm doing it with Devona, and she goes, well, you know his number 1's going to be JD and Turk. And I was like, I did not know that, but I do now. So she nailed it. But absolutely everything that Mike and Devona have said, to being that, not as, macho man mentality. I grew up the same way. I did play sports and all that way, but inside, I felt like that because I grew up, my parents were divorced. I lived with my mother and my sister. I grew up with 2 women in my house. And so I watched Gilmore Girls and I watched shows like that and I liked it. I'm not going to lie. They were good. And I kind of had that same mentality. So I resonated with JD to some extent, and I resonated with Turk and the more athletic. And again, back to those friendships, medical, surgical, best friends in college, white and black. And then I think the best running joke that they have in the entire series is moving rowdy. People aren't looking.
Yes.
It's the best running gag of all time. Because you think at some point somebody's got to catch on.
Yeah.
And they never do.
Everyone should have the luxury, the privilege of having a Turk or JD in their life. You know what I mean? And my friend Nate, he's in California now, but we used to do improv together where he would do the thing. He's a little black guy, and and I'm a giant white Cuban man, and he would jump. he would do the eagle. He'd jump up, I'd grab him, and then he'd be like, eagle, and he would do the JD. And I remember just like how that show allowed I think it's also come up on their podcast, allowed a lot of men to really just redefine their masculinity a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially for people who are connected to it. It's a really good show.
Yeah, I know. I 100% agree. Like that's what I was saying. Like this is like I never leave a room without telling my friends that I love them anymore. And this is the show that made me realize that was okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll watch it. I'm into it.
Alex knows.
It's a long. We
He
talked a
told me
lot
I
about
love you like almost every day.
Yeah. We talked a lot about it, but yes, it is my number one with a bullet, and I love you
as well as mine. All right, so number one, Alex, we know what it's going to be, but go ahead and throw it out there.
All right, Mike, it's time. It is Sean and Gus from Psych. This is my clear-cut number one, no doubt about it. I have loved Psych since it first came on. Like that was one of the things that I would watch with my dad. It was very much a secret to my mom, because if you go back and watch Psych, it holds up, but you're going to be like, like the comedy itself, if you can ignore the actual, like, the slander of it, it's really funny. And I think it still holds up, but I do understand that there's a lot of jokes in there that would not that would not fly on TV today.
The early seasons.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. But it's a clear cut number one, from the nicknames to the flashbacks to the 80s when they're kids, to the final episode where Gus actually moves to a different city with Sean. It's the perfect friendship to me. The rapport is phenomenal, and I do have the nicknames written down.
Oh yeah, hit me.
I
This
will
is my
share
favorite part of the show.
just
So
a couple.
can I say that this is if you have not watched Psych, it's on streaming. You can watch it. It's everywhere. You can watch them all.
The cock.
It's on the peacock.
Oh,
But
Missy was like, "Wait, what TV app do y'all have?"
yeah,
I pay for a lot of
That's a
apps.
bootleg one.
did they sneak in a cock? But there's a whole running thing where they are psychic investigators, but really it's that Sean has a perfect photographic memory.
Okay.
And they use that to solve crimes and assist the Santa Barbara Police Department. The whole point of it is that they end up like doing like surveillance and going in and asking people questions and stuff. So a lot of it involves them choosing secret identities. And the running joke is that Sean Spencer will give himself. Sean Spencer's the guy who's the psychic, and he would give himself a cool nickname, and then he'll always introduce Gus as like another some funny nickname.
Like
then,
what, Alex?
Here we go.
Gus TT Showbiz. This is one of my personal favorites, and it actually, Mike will know, it runs on for a couple, multiple episodes. Magic Head. Squirts Macintosh. Daquan Smallpox Randolph. Gee Buttersnaps. And one of my personal favorites, there is a modeling episode where they go undercover as models, and they're trying to get into this club. They get up to the bouncer, and he's like, names. And Sean, being the quick eye that he is, kind of glances down at the list that the bouncer has, and he goes, black and tan. And the guy goes, oh. And he turns to Gus and is like, oh, nice. Okay, got you. You're black, you're tan. And Sean just immediately, no, I'm black. It's just the immediate, it's the same thing with Leslie and Ann. It's that immediacy of a nickname that gives it so much power in every single episode. And Sean always gives him a new nickname in every single episode. I'm pretty sure he called him Emilio Estevez.
Emilio Estevez, yes.
Like, there's so many good ones in there. I think there's over 100 that ended up being used. And then one episode, Gus was trying to impress his uncle, whoever was in town, and he took the lead and was Gus, Burton Guster, who is his actual name. And then he gave Sean a ridiculous name.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big fan. My favorite one was, hi, I'm Sean Spencer, and this is MC Clap Your Hands. And then immediately Gus goes, like, on board.
Yeah, they're another two guys that always have the other one's back. Like, they always yes and each other. Like, everything they do is always a yes and.
I just found a treasure trove of literally every every Sean Spicer.
Come on, Mike. Let's hear a few.
Oh, I've no. Trapezius Milkington. Yeah. San Antonio Holmes. Hello, I'm Sean Spencer, and this is my partner, Ingle Woods. Lorenz Tate, Lil Wayne. I love the show. I mean, the writing on the show was really fun, and it is a very gimmicky show as a whole, but their friendship really is solid. Good.
No,
yeah.
100%. I think it's a clear-cut number one. There's plenty of other friendships that you can see in the show. Between Juliet and Carlton being partners together on the Santa Barbara Police Department, or in the Santa Barbara Police Department, but it's nothing like the rapport that Sean and Gus have. It's that there's never a dull moment between the two. If they're arguing, it's always some pop culture reference, and it's usually finished with a "come on, son." Something like that.
That's right.
Just a great show, and it's my clear-cut number one.
All right, so Sean and Gus from Psych. Missy, what's your number one?
So I broke my rules a little bit because just keep things interesting.
You got a throuple?
No, it's not a throuple. It's actually a quadruple. Oh. So it's a whole cast because I couldn't find the combo that I could earnestly say was the better friendship combo, and it is the Golden Girls. So I realized that it is the whole cast. So, but like I said, there's not like I tried to play with it like, oh, Dorothy and Blanche. Well, yeah, but Dorothy and Rose. Nope. So like I couldn't really pick
it's all
two.
About Sophia.
So they're all on board. This friendship, I know I'm outnumbered, but when it comes to if Yolanda is still in the comments, I think she can yay or nay this, but every group of friendship like that's girls, I'm sure that's the same for men. For women, we all have to there's certain boxes that need to be checked off, and you don't have to stay there, right? So for instance, Blanche is the vixen old lady. That's her whole shtick throughout most of the show, is that she's like the hoe basically. Then there's Dorothy, who's such a bitch.
I mean, she's just B. Arthur.
She's such a bitch. Sophia the Ballbuster, the one that just doesn't give fuck anymore. And then of course, lovely, wholesome, beautiful Rose, who's just like the oh honey.
You know what's funny? Estelle Getty was the youngest one out of all of them.
Yes.
Sophia, the mom of B. Arthur's mom. But she was actually like the youngest one out of all of them.
She used to wear a wig. So what I love about these friendships is that they, again, the running theme in my mountain is platonic, how important and pure platonic love is, because it's my specialty at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I really love it. There's a lot to be said about that, and I don't think it gets a lot of credit, that how healing it is. You guys just talked about it in friendships between men, and for women it's it's just as empowering to just have your girls, and what room to take your worries to, the ones that you can really go there with. There's just nothing like it. And so they are in terms of friendships, like and old lady goals, like that's it. Like that's what I want. The show in itself, just independent from the friendships, like it holds up, and it's like laugh out loud funny,
and
a lot
intelligent too. Like
so
there's a
smart,
lot.
Still very topical and relevant. And there's a lot of comfort watches that I have that really they're comfort watches just because of that whole, like, I know what's going to happen. So like I can ride the wave, especially if things are a little weird that day in my head. But Golden Girls is something that it is a comfort watch, but it is still laugh out loud funny. Like it's not a chuckle. There's a lot of moments that are just so great. The way that these four women are loyal to each other, even despite all the ball busting, despite all the obvious flaws and challenges, and Stan coming in the cock block a good time all the time. And it's a great testament, I think, because I don't know if this is true for men, but I know for women, we're kind of raised with the idea that like that the end game for your life should be that you grow old with someone, and that someone is your husband, or that someone is your significant other. And this show, I find it very comforting because it explores like, well, what if it's not? What if the end game is not that? It doesn't look like everybody else's life. It doesn't look like everybody else's, plan. And there's really nothing negative about these girls. The way that they have each other's, the way that they have each other's back, the fact that the friendship is explored at what we would consider the twilight of everybody's life is just great. Grace and Frankie is like a version of this, like dialed down to 2, a lot more sarcasm and a lot more money. But
one's a sitcom, the other one is not. Like this is a classic sitcom.
This is way when you think of a sitcom, it's Golden Girls, and where Grace and Frankie
camera setup.
Yeah, where Grace and Frankie takes I don't know that it's a drama, but it doesn't stick to the sitcom mold for sure. Still equally great. Frankie is like my heart. I love her so much. So I really couldn't pick a combo. That's why I broke my own rules and I did all 4, because there's not really, I don't think there's a combo of any of these that can exist without the other 2.
Good point.
So it's just I couldn't work around it. And again, my theme is always like for this is like and again, I don't know if it's the same for men. I don't think it, from the sound of it, I don't think it's any different. But like, women are raised to like, your end goal is to find somebody to grow old with. Your end goal is to find somebody to like, a significant other. And you get to a certain age where you start having to consider like, okay, well, what if it doesn't look like that? Like, what then? Because that's a possibility too. And there's not a failure in that, but it's still worthy and a worthy topic to explore.
And traditionally women are taught like from the outside as not a woman, but like you in pop culture and in media, surprise. As a in pop culture,
I don't see gender.
No. They like you always see women as being even friends, like competitive and kind of catty with each other, where it's like I don't think that's a benefit to women either.
No.
Like that's why like even the ladies on my list, like Ann Perkins and Leslie Knope, it's not even about gender, it's just about unabashedly being support for your friends, And I think this show embodies. I used to watch it with my grandma. My grandmother loved this show, and it's like such a fond memory of like at my grandma's house watching.
This show was like a byproduct of being too poor for cable, so like I had no option but to stick to the local channels. And by that time, like this was in heavy, syndication. Thank you. So
can I show you Yolanda? Yolanda is a Blanche with some Dorothy thrown in.
I love it.
It's almost like a zodiac sign. She's a Blanche with Dorothy rising.
Blanche in the streets. Or no, Dorothy in the streets, Blanche in the sheets.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
Forget about your zodiac sign. Tell me which golden girl you are.
How much? Yeah. Skip small talk. Like, tell me what was going on in Blanche's. I've tweeted one time that I was like, Blanche called her dad Big Daddy. Like, there's a lot of things in the show that I'm like, very obvious why this happened.
There's a Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle is a guest star in one of the episodes, and they have a whole conversation because Blanche wants to put the Confederate flag on something.
Mm-hmm.
And Don Cheadle, who was like the supporting character on the show for a little while, literally there's a whole episode where they talk about why that's not cool in the 80s.
Yeah, yes. It was the daughters of the daughters of the Civil War episode, right? Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so, my wife is obsessed with this show, and I like it just fine. And this is gonna make me the asshole, but I'm sitting up in Neri's corner, so here I go. I can't stand Rose. It's just
Rose is
I can't. I know.
So you're Dorothy. So you're Dorothy.
It's just. I'm Sophia. No, I'm Team Sophia. Like if I've got to pick one, like it's Sophia. Okay. Sophia is what makes the show worth watching for me. It's just. like I get it, and it's one of those things, right, where like you feel the role, like even the real world has become about just like, okay, who's the black guy, who's the gay guy, like who's the bitch, like it's just they just went so far with that element of her being the simpleton that it's just annoying to me sometimes.
But I think that every group has one. I'll say that much. Not just women, men. There's some dumbass men in every circle of friends as well. I'm in some group chats with them.
Ouch.
No, nobody in this room. No, nobody is connected to Geek Bro. Sorry, that seemed targeted.
Well, fuck you too.
That seemed targeted, but it wasn't. But every group has a dumbass, and like, I'm sorry, there's just always one person. You're like, you're the dumbass.
Yeah,
like usually it's me. But I think that Rose plays her role like she like for the comedy for the purposes of comedy, she plays that role well.
It's just she's just what grates me when I watch that show.
Yeah, so you're Dorothy. So I think that for sure, 100%, nobody gets under her skin faster than Rose. Like Dorothy's zingers, the ones that are really home runs, are all directed at Rose. So
wasn't there an episode where you learn that Rose is actually really smart? That she's got she's.
There's one where you learn she's addicted to painkillers, and another where she might have AIDS. That's not funny. Those are just episodes.
No, because they were very active in the 80s.
Yeah.
I lived in Miami too, and like you could tell from the decor of that set.
I love that house. I want that house
safe
now.
Cheesecake in Dade County when those ladies are around.
Oh my god! I just I think I don't remember who mentioned it, but traditionally the story in sitcoms, there's always some kind of underlying like cattiness or competitiveness between the female characters. It's another one of those fuck ass things, like in the same way that you guys have to undo toxic like masculinity that's internalized. Women, for the most part, those of us that choose to do it, you're gonna spend some time trying to undo that mean girl catty bullshit, because it's stupid. Like it's such a waste of time, and I'm too lazy for that shit. So anyway, Golden Girls forever.
All four of them.
I couldn't pick, and I will be watching them today as I fall asleep.
So the number ones were JD and Turk twice, Sean and Gus, and the Golden Girls. So now as we get to the final mountain, we actually have 5 repeats. We've got Leslie and Ann, Jack and Karen, David and Stevie, JD and Turk, Sean and Gus. So what we tend to do here is assign point values. If they were a number 4, they get 1 point, so on and so forth. The number 1 is 4 points. So based on those point values, what I have is JD and Turk have 3 votes. So they're number 1 with a bullet.
Hell yes.
And then we get to Sean and Gus have 6 points out of their 2 votes since they had a number 1. David and Stevie have 5 points.
Yay.
And Jack and Karen have 4 points, just edging out Leslie and Ann, who only had 2 points since they were both number 4 picks. So the final mountain for TV friendships is JD and Turk from Scrubs, Sean and Gus from Psych, David and Stevie from Schitt's Creek, and Jack and Karen from Will and Grace.
2 and 2.
I like it.
This is good. Yeah, I scored 2. I think this was a fair mountain.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we've got I say we've got a little bit of everything, but what we have is 2 interracial male friendships, and I take it, and then we have 2 where one of them is gay and one of them is like an outcast woman. But hey, whatever, right? That's how it goes.
We hit a theme. I think we hit a theme.
There is a theme.
We figured out what makes good friends, guys.
A lot to unpack.
TV producers out there, just know that you either need a gay friend and a non-gay friend, or a black and a white.
Yeah, or a black and a white guy. That's how it works. So thank you guys for listening to us so much today. If you're listening to the audio, make sure that you check us out. We're Mondays, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Make sure that you tune into the Geek Bro Network. We got a lot of podcasts going on right now. Yep. I will be on at this time tomorrow doing Shiver, where we will be doing a deep dive into The Conjuring. If you are listening live, you can check us out tomorrow night. Mike and Missy are now doing Kick Flicks. That's correct, right? Kick Flicks. And you did your last episode was Sidekicks. What do you guys have coming up next?
We have so we're going to be trying to do two an episode, 2 a week. We have Ong Bak, which is the
Tony Jaa.
Tony Jaa special. Yeah, real ass kickery, Muay Thai style, Jackie Chan influence. And then we have Blind Fury, which I am lament. I don't want to watch that thing.
It's not good. It's not good. It's fun. It's not good.
This is one of those that it's like one for you, one for me.
There we go.
One for you. I'm gonna watch Ong Bak. I love it. The stunts, the action, and then you're gonna make me watch Blind Fury because of the joke. Whatever.
What?
We'll talk about it.
What am I supposed to watch? Watch these by is there a date? Because I haven't watched neither of these ever.
Stay tuned to our social medias.
There we go. So check out our social media. You can find everything you need at geekbro.net. You can find a link to all of our podcasts like Kickflix, Shiver, Childlike at Best, A Dose of Ellie, and then, of course, What's Up, Bro, with Neri Signs, who's normally on here with us and is not today. He's off doing his comedy thing. So check us out at geekbro.net. You can find all that. Alex, you got anything going on you want to tell everybody about?
Currently unemployed, shout out. So if there's anybody who works in sports or wants to give me a job, that would be fantastic. I'm totally qualified. I have 2 degrees and I have plenty of professional experience. That doesn't mean anything in this world today. So if you just like to give a kid who's got nothing a shot, I mean, look, I'm fully aware that, you have to continue to grow, and that's what I'm trying to do right now.
I don't know if you know this, Alex. Fox Sports and NBC Sports and ESPN, all regular watchers.
You know what?
That's the 5 people that are watching.
Yep.
Yeah. You know what? I had this whole joke planned out. I was really hoping. I assumed no one told me that Neri wasn't going to be on today. So my first joke was going to be, when I brought this up, like, what are you doing? I was going to be like, well, I know Mickey Erickson, the owner of the Heat, is watching. Mickey. I'm in between jobs right now, just having a good time living life. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, my Instagram handle is they call me Lang. I'm Bama Lang on Twitter. I tweet a lot about sports. Annoyingly, I'm a Mets fan, a Giants fan. I like Duke basketball and Alabama football. So
God, he's lucky that he's so personable. Yes, his fandoms are dog shit.
Give me all the hate you want, because I'm not a front runner. I've been a Duke fan since I was in 3rd grade. I have 2 degrees from the University of Alabama. So I will smack you in the face with knowledge.
He knows his shit. He absolutely does. So thank you guys so much for listening. We hope to see you around for some of our other podcasts. Make sure you check all of our social medias. All of our handles are here listed. And like I said, head to geekbro.net if you need to know anything about any other podcasts we're doing. We hope that you show up for the others. If not, we'll be back doing Geekmore next week.
And remember to tell your friends that you love them.
Tell your friends that you love them.
Love your friends.
And look,
and if you struggle with that, just work on it.
Yeah, and look, and not to bring it down, because just absolutely a celebration of life. The world did lose a very shining star, my friend Ross Norton, last week. And it's a stark reminder of the fact that you don't know that they're going to be there tomorrow to tell them that you love them. So make sure that you take that opportunity. Tell your friends that you love them every time you can. We love each and every one of you guys who listen. So thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Peace out.
Bye.
We're ending the broadcast.